You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick, Ohio entrepreneur, businessman, and former car dealer, Mr. Bernie Moreno. I know that you know this young man because he is all over the news. This time, though, it's because of his campaign trail for the U.S. Senate seat out of Ohio. He's done an incredible job in the auto industry. As all of you know, you've read about him in automotive news and seen him here on CBT News over the years. And now he wants to be the next senator from the great state of Ohio, running as a Republican, I might add. So, Bernie, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So first and foremost, completely out of the car business, and your focus now is to become, as I said in the opening, the next senator from the great state of Ohio, right?
Absolutely. So as you know, I started with one tiny little car dealership I bought back in 2005, built 15 dealerships over 12 years,
Wow.
Sold all those, started a technology company that uses blockchain to make the car titling process digital. We launched in West Virginia. We're launching in Kentucky and New Jersey, and soon to be another state, and somewhere another in 20 other states. I've sold my shares in that company to focus on this. And now, Jim, I can tell you I'm fully unemployed, looking for government work. That's my current job description.
There you go. There you go. And I will add that I think I could speak for probably everybody in the car business that runs dealerships, owns dealerships, that we need representation in the U.S. Senate and the Congress for that matter, right? I mean, this is something that dealers need to pay attention to.
Absolutely. So I'd be the first senator that had car business experience. We have a few in the House. But as you know, the Senate is 100 people versus 435.
That's right.
We have a very thin majority in the House, and we obviously have the Democrats have a thin majority in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Recapturing the Senate's critical. That's where appointments for the cabinet are made. That's where ambassadors are approved, declare war, the budget, and so federal judges. So the Senate really is the main policy-making side of the Congress.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I should add that today, on the headline of Automotive News, and certainly here at CBT News, we've reported that 4,000 automobile dealers got together and sent a letter to the Biden administration saying, hey, you need to back up on this EV situation. Can you talk to us about that and what your feeling is on it?
Those of us who are in the car business, were in the car business, know consumers and we should be dictating the market. So if consumers want to buy electric cars, then that's what manufacturers should make and dealers will sell. Dealers are simple people, right? If the people want pink cars, we'll stock and sell pink cars. But the reality is what the marketplace is telling us pretty clearly is they're not ready to adopt electric cars at the scale that the government's mandating it. So they should back off the incentives, back off the mandates. I suggest that we freeze CAFE standards for at least a decade, let the marketplace adjust, let the car companies get the proper read on what is the market share percentage that's appropriate, and then let's see how technology evolves naturally. But the government shouldn't be involved in that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those are good ideas. Hey, let me back up here a little bit and mention that you have been endorsed by JD Vance, who is your fellow, or soon to be your fellow senator there out of Ohio, right? And then also Senator Mike Lee jumped in with his support, and some notable others as well. So you've got some momentum through this thing, right?
Oh, yeah. We have 35 national endorsements. So in addition, Marco Rubio, Lee Zeldin, Senator Norm Coleman, Charlie Kirk, Kerry Lake, 15 of President Trump's ambassadors, Kash Patel. So we got a great assortment of national endorsements. But Jim, we also have 500 endorsements from every corner of Ohio. Wow. And of course, the most important endorsement of all is the one we want, which is the voters of Ohio. And that's what we work on every single day. So we travel about 2,000 miles a week to every corner of Ohio, meet people, have events day in, day out. And that's what we're focused on.
That's fantastic. Since you mentioned Trump, I will go there for just a second. Obviously, he's a very polarizing figure, as you know, I'm sure there in Ohio, and that speaks for the rest of the country as well. But listen, if he is convicted, he's up against 91 charges here, but if he's convicted, should he run? Should he step down? If he does run, do you support him? Where do you stand on that?
Well, these charges are all basically election interference, political charges. You look at the case in New York where the judge is saying that Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. I'll take it, right? I think we'll all buy Mar-a-Lago for
You'll double it.
$18
You'll go to
million,
36
even
if you
if we
have
don't
to.
have it, by the way. It doesn't matter if we have it or not, but we'll buy it for $18 million. If he announced tomorrow that he wasn't running for president, all these charges would be dropped. I think at the end of the day, we have to restore faith in our justice system. And it's pretty clear that Joe Biden's going after his political opponent. It shouldn't be the case. I don't think the cases are going to go anywhere. At the end of the day, I support President Trump. He's encouraged me to run. He's very popular here in Ohio for good reasons. And I think he'll win the primary and win the general election.
In saying that he has supported you in running or encouraged you to run, I should say, does that mean that you've got his support?
He thought it was a good idea for me to run, and we'll see if he has a formal endorsement that comes in. Certainly, I've endorsed him. I endorsed him back in January because I really do believe the country and the world needs him back. I mean, we were much more safe and secure. The economy was better. I think the objectively life under President Trump was much better than life under Biden. If you look at inflation, you look at interest rates, you look at the economy, real wages, foreign policy. So I think that we'll get another Trump 4 years that will be even more transformative in a positive way for the country.
Sure. Which perfect segue to my next question. What do you think Biden is doing wrong or right with the current economy? And what would a Republican administration look like with regard to an economy?
Yeah, clearly and genuinely, not trying to be sarcastic, everything wrong. I mean, Joe Biden is a all-you-can-eat buffet of disaster. You look at the government spending. Jim, we spent $25 trillion. It's a number that I just said that doesn't mean anything. $25 trillion in the last 3 years. We're spending $1 trillion a year in interest. We've added $1 trillion in debt a month since we got rid of the debt ceiling. That government spending has led to generationally high inflation, which is crushing working class Americans. We're making deals with foreign countries that hurt American industries, hurt American workers. We've shown weakness throughout the world that has caused enormous problems. So we got a lot to fix.
Yeah. So what do you say to those that say, well, Trump added to the deficit as well during his administration, certainly with tax cuts that looks like that maybe we weren't in the right position to give at the time, and that's what added to that. And then a couple of other things that some people are saying, we never really got a health care bill, we didn't get an infrastructure bill, we didn't get Mexico to pay for the wall. We ended up, with a very conservative Supreme Court that actually took the rights away from women. There's some negativity there as well. What is this something that you feel good about, or that we want to go back to?
The president's not the king, right? So the laws are made in Congress. He was fighting Republicans and Democrats. He certainly would have wanted to finish the wall. There was a way, Mexico had surged 29,000 troops on the border that Joe Biden said, you don't have to be there anymore. They were paying for that. We certainly could have taxed remittances to pay for the wall, but the wall, in comparison, was a tiny amount of money compared to what we're spending now. If you look at the spending, we had this once in a generation pandemic where we had a CARES Act. Now we had governors in many, many states that shut down the economies, and there was programs put in place to fix that. That was a huge cost to the government. Then you look at the military. Our military had been depleted over the Obama years. We had to rebuild that back. But the deficit that was added by President Trump, if you take out COVID and defense, was actually very minimal compared to what Biden has done. But listen, let me just say this. Republicans and Democrats have not done a good job of controlling spending. And when we take over in 2025, we have to massively reduce our federal debt. It's immoral for us to pass on this kind of debt to our kids and grandkids, and we shouldn't do it.
In terms of the wall, and obviously we see literally hundreds of thousands of people, coming over our border, our southern border there. You're for sending a lot of these illegals back. Is that? Do I get that correct? That you just assume deport the illegals?
As you know, I came here legally when I was a kid with my 5 brothers, my sister, my mom and dad when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I think it's demeaning to those of us who followed the law, who followed the right process, that came here legally, to watch this country reward those who came here illegally. Mm-hmm. We're going to spend $450 billion this year housing illegal migrants. Now, Jim, we have 25,000 homeless vets in this country.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. Yet
Yeah.
we're spending $500 billion to house illegal migrants. If you're here illegally, you must be deported. We cannot have any kind of amnesty. It sounds cruel, but at the end of the day, if we don't stand for the rule of law, then who are we as a nation? So we want to have a system of legal immigration, but we have to have zero tolerance for illegal immigration. The only people that are rewarded when people come here illegally is the drug cartels and the mules that bring them here. And we
Yeah.
have to send a signal to the world that says, we want immigrants here. We want immigrants here in America, but they have to come under our terms and legally, not illegally.
What do you do with the estimated 12 million plus that are here and have been living here and maybe in some cases grew up here, went to school and college and are working? What do we do with them?
Well, here illegally, they shouldn't be working because obviously we have rules around people who are not here legally not being able to work. We have no choice. We have to deport them because if we don't, we're never going to fix the southern border. Because what happens is when we do amnesty, we did it in the late '80s under Reagan. When we did amnesty in the '80s, it didn't solve the problem. In fact, objectively made the problem much worse. You have to make it clear to the rest of the world there's one path to America, which is a legal path. What's interesting about Biden, Jim, is that right now it's almost impossible to come here legally. If you are somebody who lives in, for example, relative of mine in Colombia that wants to come to the US legally and work, virtually impossible. But if you pay a drug cartel member a couple grand, they'll smuggle you right across the border and you hit the lottery.
Yeah.
You get free housing, free food, free healthcare, free education. That's nuts. So
Right.
we have to make it clear, one path to America, a legal path, no exceptions.
You brought up education, which is a hot topic as well. Many people are concerned about that. What's your take on the current state of education in the U.S. and what should we do about it?
I said after spending $25 trillion, you would think that we'd have the greatest schools, greatest infrastructure, greatest military, greatest everything in the world. And we have all those things, and objectively, they're worse.
Yeah.
In education, the federal government has played too high of a role. In '79, Carter created the Department of Education. It was unconstitutional. There's nothing in the Constitution that allows the federal government to control education. We should abolish the Department of Education. Parents, not administrators, and certainly not unions, should be in charge of public schools. And the way we do that is by getting rid of the Department of Education and moving control of schools to local communities so that parents are back in charge of schools. And when we do that, and I firmly believe that's a year one objective that we'll accomplish in 2025, when we take back power, you'll see a big change in education.
Sure. A very hot topic there in Ohio among your voters and your citizens there is abortion. It's a very hot topic, as you know, and very polarizing. Very passionate people on both sides. Where do you stand on this topic now that the Supreme Court has said we're going to let the states decide?
The Dobbs decision was correct in the sense that there's nothing constitutionally protecting abortion, and that it threw the issue back to the states. I think the voters of those states are best equipped to make that decision. Certainly in Ohio, they've made their position crystal clear. I think what we've got to do as Republicans, those of us who are pro-life, like me, I do believe I'm Catholic. I do believe life begins at conception. Certainly, the rest of the country is not with me in terms of believing that, and I think we have to win hearts and minds. We also have to make it easier for women to make that decision, make it less expensive to have a kid, make it less expensive to raise a family. I think if we put in place pro-mom and pro-family policies, I think that's the best way to avoid making a woman having to make that decision. We have to be very, very empathetic towards people who are going through that process. Nobody wins in an abortion. It's a terrible situation for everybody. And I think we got to come together as a country and say, where can we agree on some of these things and not have it be such a polarizing issue?
Sure, sure. And as we see, this Israel, in war with Hamas, what should be done about that? I mean, this is another very, very difficult issue to figure out, especially for us here in America. And what is your take on that?
There's no greater ally in the world for America than Israel. And they're at war with a terrorist group called Hamas and Hezbollah and many others that surround them. They've given it every effort they had. I've been to Israel many times. It's remarkable the great lengths that they go through to try to get peace there, but clearly it does not work. Israel has no choice. They have to wipe out Hamas. Iran is the tip of the spear here. America has to stand side by side with Israel and make it clear that any move on Israel is a move on America, and be there to support them. We fund them very well. We have to give them the space to do what they need to do to make that happen. What's happening is that Biden's telling them how to prosecute this war, when to have a ceasefire, what they should agree to. Israel knows what needs to be done. We got to make it clear that they should be allowed to do it. And in countries like Qatar, which are housing and giving refuge to terrorists, have to be held accountable for what they're doing and their role in this. But this is about American strength and projecting a clear message to the world that we support unequivocally Israel.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Unions, we saw the UAW recently, just shut down the auto industry for the most part, in certain the big three, Detroit rather, and that was something that obviously there in Ohio, you've got a lot of union workers. Where do you stand on that? Is that something that you support?
I'm not anti-union. I think some private sector unions are good at creating good, high-paying jobs for Americans, and I'm for growing and thriving middle class. But you have to have a standard of reasonableness there. We do work in a global environment, and what we don't want to do is handicap our auto industry. I mean, I think asking for 40% raises and holding car companies hostage, asking for 40 hours of pay for 32 hours of work, and asking for pensions, which is what bankrupted these car companies in the first place, is not a reasonable expectation. But I think we should come together and work together to say, hey, we all want the same thing. And Henry Ford did it, right? That was the magic of what he did, was if we have a growing and thriving middle class, everybody wins. And we should be looking at ways to make that happen. We should get to a place, Jim, where a mom or a dad can have one job between them and raise a family in this country. Yeah. And that means we bring manufacturing back here, we make things again, and you can have a good, high-paid job and raise a family. And I think that's something everybody can agree on.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question. What do you hear from the voters as you travel around the country at 2,000 miles a week? What do you hear, I should say the state, what do you hear from the Ohio voters? What do they want you to focus on?
The one thing I'll tell you that you and I think the listeners can get out of this experience that I've had, because we all live in our own bubbles, is that what I hear from everyday Americans is that they feel like we have a political class in this country that has sold out the country, that they've made enormous wealth for themselves.
Yeah.
They haven't been looking out for America or Americans, and they're sick of it.
Right.
That's where Donald Trump's appeal comes in, where they look at that and say, here's a guy who's finally calling it like it is. And they're just sick of Americans being second-class citizens in their own country, where they have a government that's more concerned about foreign illegal immigrants than taking care of American citizens, that they've seen our factories leave and go to other countries and then left with no job, even though they did everything in their power to do the right thing. And that anger is what is certainly palatable all over Ohio. You go to places like Southeast Ohio, which was once a thriving energy mecca with coal and natural gas, and these are shells of their former selves, these cities, and the people there are really, really pissed. And they understand that the reason it's happened is because politicians of both parties have really let them down. And they just want people to go to DC, serve the country, for the service of the country, not for their own enrichment. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I'm finding.
Yep. Bernie Moreno, the next U.S. Senator from the great state of Ohio, as I said earlier. Congratulations on all your success thus far. I know there's a lot of car dealers out there that are cheering you on. We do need a former dealer in that spot in Washington, helping us any way we can get. Or any help that we can get, I should say, in the auto industry. And I like your ideas. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
They can go on our website, berniemoreno.com. We have a great coalition of Ohio and national car dealers. The reality is Sherrod Brown is going to have all the union support in the world. So this is going to be the seat that determines control of the Senate. So you're a car dealer out there, you want to support the campaign, you can reach me at berniemoreno.com. Shoot me a note, shoot me an email, respond right back to you. Would love to get you on board.
We're showing all the information on the screen right now to do just that. And right underneath the video that you're watching is a link right to his campaign. So you can get more information and you can make a donation. Whether you live in Ohio or not, how great would it be if we had a former car dealer representing us, right where we need them to be, especially during these very unique times. The EVs we touched on today. We need more support and more of our voice out there in DC. So Bernie, thank you so much and best of luck to you.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.